Hi guys, today's card's going to be using the Concord 9th marbled Turnabout stamp, and I'm trying to show here how using the jig that they've come out with will help you line up your stamp and your piece of paper so that you have something to maneuver in there so that you don't get ink on your hands and anywhere else. So the clear sheet with the black print on it is so that it can help you line up on your piece of paper. So basically where the cross is in the middle, that's where you want to line up the center of your card or your piece of paper. I got to say, this is actually a harder way for me to do it. So you'll see when I get to the next bit, the third one that I attempt to do, you'll see that I actually use a 7x7 inch piece of cardstock, and that's way easier for my little brain. So I've tried using the jig, I just can't get it to work the way I think you're supposed to use it. What I am trying to do here is use almost like a second, third and fourth generation stamping, but you'll see on the sides it for some reason, and I can't work out what it was, there's too much ink and it's almost like there's lines. So I could have made it into a smaller card, but I wasn't happy, so I basically started again, which you'll see in a minute. So I have grabbed some more Stampin' Up cardstock and some more Stampin' Up ink, beg your pardon, and the inks that I used were Poppy Parade, Mango Melody, Granny Apple Green and Gorgeous Grape. And you'll see it just creates this amazing, vibrant, in your face kind of psychedelic pattern, and it's beautiful. But you'll see in the next one it's a much more subtle set of colors, and I actually prefer it. But this is a great one for the boys or the guys in your life because it is so vibrant. So what I've been doing here is, and these colors are from the Brights range or color collection for Stampin' Up. So the jig basically has, you can't see it on camera, but the jig, the plastic bit that I'm sort of got the piece of paper stuck to temporarily, has numbers in the corners. So in all four corners there's a number, and that's why every time you've stamped it in a color, you turn it to stamp the next color, and so you're rotating it every time you need to stamp the next layer, if you like. So you don't need that, but it helps if you do forget what number you're on and which one you've stamped. That is very, very handy. But you can do this, like I say, on a piece of cardstock, and I'll show you in the next bit. The other thing to bear in mind is that it also has on the jig, it has almost like a perforated cross that runs through it, and that's where lining up your piece of cardstock comes in handy, and finding the center, the same as the like acetate sheet with the pattern of the stamp on it right at the beginning of the video. That also has a line that goes, or like a cross, an X that goes through it, and that's to help you line up the center of the stamp. So you'll see in a second here, this is a 7x7 inch piece of cardstock. The stamp is not that big, you'll see in a minute, but what I didn't do is I didn't move my stamp. So you'll see in a second I actually make a boo-boo, and I realize as I turn my piece of cardstock, I actually am not going to land up with it in the center. So in other words, the pattern's not going to line up. So what I did was I just flipped it over. It's a plain piece of cardstock. You've got the other side you can play with, and I lined it up as best I could in the middle of that piece of cardstock. So this is where, for me, this is a much easier way to do this, and it's much quicker. I just found it easier. I'm probably doing something not quite right when it comes to the jig. I probably need to practice that quite a lot more, but it's not difficult. I just think for me this is a much simpler way of doing it. And Concord and 9th have some fantastic different designs and things like that, so you'll see some more from me, but this is the first, in fact this is the second one I've really played with of the larger ones the other one is a Christmas one, which I will be sharing in my Christmas series because we're at that time of the year already. So you'll see here these colours are from the Subtles range from Stampin' Up, and they are Petal Pink, Soft Sea Foam, Balmy Blue, and Highland Heather. Those are the 4 colours I chose to use from that colour collection, and I just think this looks so pretty. So pretty. You'll see in a minute, especially once the purple's added in. It's just like, oh my gosh. So so for me, this, like I say, this was a much simpler way to do it. And also bear in mind, if you're making a standard A2 size card, which I did in, you know, and this is what you'll see in a bit, it's also easier. Sorry, you can also use the leftover. So cut part of it into your A2, you know, size that you want, and then use the leftovers, which you'll see in a bit, for another card or for the inside of a card or something like that. So I've got a standard A2 size card here, and that's a basic black cardstock, a card base, sorry. And I'm just, because it's black on the inside, I'm just going to stick a piece of white cardstock slightly smaller, so that it, you know, you've got somewhere to write. And that way it's, you know, well, you've got somewhere to write. Unless you want to write in it, you could write in a white pen or something like that. And then I've just cut the marbled panel down so that it fits on the outside of the card. I use a lot of A2 size cards. My husband has actually asked if I can make bigger cards, so I'm not sure what I'm going to do there. Excuse me. So I may, you know, do some, you know, make some bigger cards as well. But we'll see what happens. I quite like a standard size card. It just works out well for me. So these are the dies, the words you, and I've used 2 different ones, are both from the MFT's All About You Trio die set, and it goes with or complements the All About You stamp set, which I've used for the sentiments as well. And I just used some of the colours that I had within the marbled front panels for the cards. I just used one of the colours from there to actually stamp that sentiment. And you'll have to excuse my voice, but I have a silly throat thing, infection, whatever you want to call it. So apologies, it comes and goes. So I think the more I'm using the stamp set and die set, the more I'm loving it. I love the words on it. I just think that everybody needs a bit of encouragement, and I think there's nothing better than somebody spreading words of kindness, or, you know, saying something really nice and kind to someone else. You never know what someone else is going through, so I think to be able to send them a card or to say something and be mindful of the fact that they may be going through something, I just think we need more of that in the world. So here I'm using some tonic clear glaze, crystal glaze I think it's called. Oh, and my cat decided to make an appearance. Excuse me. She yeah, you've just got head and butt, so there you go. And I look like I'm pushing her out the way. I'm not. It looks worse than it is. She was making me laugh. I was laughing while she was doing it because it was just so funny. She's a nutbag. She's absolutely bonkers. But she is, in all fairness to her, 14 weeks old, so she's only a tiny little thing. Anyway, so the inside of this card, this is also an A2 size card. This is Stampin' Up's, I want to say, Smoky Slate cardstock. And the leftover piece from that larger panel I've just used on the inside so that it, you know, it just brings a little bit of something into the inside of your card. You don't have to do that, but I had it there and I didn't really want to make another card with it, but I could have easily done that. And then again, the U, the word U is cut out of the same as the same color as the base of the card. And I'm basically doing exactly the same thing, just in 2 different color palettes, and yeah, it's practically the same card. It's just 2 different color palettes. So I'm just, and you'll see I do put a lot of dimension and sticky stuff on the back, because I have this thing in my head that I can't bear the thought that my card's going to fall apart. So I do go a bit overkill on the dimensionals and the that kind of thing, but you know, I think that's okay. You'll see here I'm going to do something a little bit different with the with this part. I couldn't think of the word there. And I'm using some tonic, I want to say this is the glitter pen, but I can't think what it's called off the top of my head, and I haven't got it near me. But basically it's like a shimmery pen. Crafter's Companion have one as well. Wink of Stella is very similar. And so I love this thing, and I love putting this underneath the crystal glaze, because when it dries, the like sparkle that you get from it is just incredible. So normally you would wait for it to dry maybe a little bit longer than this, but to be honest, it's so hot here and there's only a thin layer because I'm running out of it. So I was pretty happy that it was dry enough to just put the glaze over the top, but you want to make sure that that is dry before you do that. But it just, when it dries, it's so pretty, so pretty. So we're practically done with these cards now. I hope you've enjoyed watching this. I hope you give the Concord 9th Turnabout stamps a bit of a whirl. If you've got any hints and tips for me, please let me know in the comments, because like I say, it took me a while to get my head around it, but they're very cool. And I think especially something like the marbled one, you can easily make this for a guy's card, which I find quite hard to do. So I will see you in the next one, guys, but please subscribe and like, and give me a is that it? Give it a thumbs up, and I will see you in the next one. See you later. Bye.